Dear students of Ulpana and Or Chaim, I spoke this morning at the Tekes of Ulpana in the middle of just this very meaningful gathering that our grade 9 students beautifully choreographed and performed to commemorate the beginning, the first stages of what would ultimately lead to the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash and the Dvar Torah that I gave at Or Chaim just prior to Ashrei. Many of you heard it. Some of you were not there, already starting to recharge your batteries to get ready for the break that we have. And I thought perhaps I'd share it with your parents as well as something that I thought was very meaningful and very much mission-driven as a yeshiva and as a school. The scene is that Yosef is revealing himself to his brothers. And in the context of that, he wants to prove to them that he is in fact Yosef. So he says to them, the Torah tells us, V'hine einchem ra'ot, ve'einei achi binyamin, ki pi hamedaber aleichem. Take a look with your eyes and listen to me. It is me, Yosef. And he offers them two pieces of evidence. Number one, that he has a Brit Milah. And number two, that he's speaking B'Lashon HaKodesh, both quoted by Rashi. The problem is, are these really proofs? Are these really strong pieces of evidence that one could point to? Number one, Rashi points out earlier in Parshat Miketz, when Paro gives Yosef authority, and Paro tells Yosef that you should figure out how to divvy up the food in Mitzrayim, he tells the Mitzrayim that whatever Yosef says you have to do. And Yosef put a rule in place that any individual who wants food has to come to him and has to have a Brit Milah first. And number two, the Ramban writes, I'll read it to you, Einenu raya sheyidaber adam echad b'Mitzrayim b'Lashon HaKodesh. It's not a proof that a person who lives in Mitzrayim speaks Lashon HaKodesh, ki al da'ati hu sfat Canaan, because that was the language of Eretz Canaan. V'rabim b'Mitzrayim yodim oto ki karavhu. The two nations were very close to each other. And since they were close to each other, it's natural that people involved in business, leaders of society, intellectual individuals would be able to speak both languages. So neither piece of evidence would prove that this is Yosef. But furthermore, was proof really necessary? I mean, think about the story for a minute. Let's remember, the brothers had split up going down to Mitzrayim in an effort to find Yosef because they thought he might be there. Number one, all of a sudden this ruler is able to sit them at the table in age order. And the ruler knows that there's a younger brother back home. And when that younger brother comes, the ruler gives him extra portions. And this ruler is constantly focused on the brothers. He asks all the time, is my father still alive? He seems to know too much about the story, and perhaps most convincing, even if they couldn't recognize him at first, once he revealed himself to the brothers, all of a sudden they're looking at him and they're saying, hey, wait a second, it does look like Yosef. This actually makes sense. So what message is Yosef trying to send the brothers? Maybe it's a very different message, and it's the same message that we get from this idea also in this week's parsha, when the Torah tells us that Yaakov, Vayaret ha'agalot asher shalach Yosef, that he sees the wagons that Yosef sent. And Rashi points out that Yosef did not send wagons, Paro sent wagons, but rather Yosef was trying to send a message that I still remember the sugya that we were learning together, and I'm still connected to Limud Torah. What's the message that Yosef's trying to send his brothers? Maybe Yosef's trying to say the following. You must be very worried and nervous about coming down to Mitzrayim. You must be incredibly concerned about leaving Eretz Yisrael. You've lived there in this state of Kedusha, in this incredible holiness, and now I'm telling you to go to Galut. And you're not going to be able to keep mitzvot. And you're not going to be able to keep the covenant. And you're not going to be able to maintain your language. And you're not going to be able to learn Torah. And Yosef says, no, you will. The Brit Milah represents the covenant and the commitment, and Yosef says to them, no, it is strong and it can be strong. Lashon HaKodesh is our language. It binds us as a people. It's our holy tongue. And Yosef's saying, we can do it. And Limud Torah, I still remember the Torah, I'm still learning the Torah. My children are learning. And that's really the mission of Yeshivat Or Chaim, of Ulpanat Orot. to demonstrate and show that we can maintain a commitment to Torah and mitzvot and to HaKadosh Baruch Hu 100%. Kidatu Kidin, all Taryag mitzvot, even in the diaspora. Today, Asar B'Tevet represents the first day, the beginning of the Galut, because this represents the beginning of the Churban Bayit Rishon, and that led to the Churban Bayit Sheni and to the Galut that we're living in. And what's going on in Israel right now is Atchalta de Geula, is the continuing of the stages of redemption that have to take place as a precursor to the ultimate Geula and to all of us being in Israel. And in the interim, while we find ourselves in Toronto, and while we are building yeshivot and shuls and schools and communities, we can, we should, we must maintain our commitment to Torah and mitzvot 100%. And as we get ready to take a little break for 2 weeks, that has to continue as well. Going to Minyan, continuing to daven, continuing to say Tehillim for our brothers and sisters in Israel, continuing to staying focused on our mission and what we believe to be our responsibility. That's the message that Yosef was sending his brothers, and that's the message that we need to remember as we continue on to build our institutions here in Toronto. Wishing everyone an easy rest of your fast, Shabbat Shalom, Bisurot Tovot, and a wonderful 2 weeks that hopefully brings better news from Israel, and looking forward to seeing everyone in 2 weeks coming back rested and ready to go. Thank you for listening.